So I'll be talking about briefly how do you try to understand people from their big data. And because I'm a psychologist and a psychometrician, when I'm talking about understanding people, I'm saying, can you measure them in the same way that you'd measure people with a questionnaire? Right? So if you give someone a questionnaire, then it says, you know, are you a talkative person? Do you like going to parties? Are you open-minded? And then we score those together, and we can tell if someone's an extrovert or an introvert or conscientious or whatever. So can we measure those same kinds of things, but from big data instead? So no questionnaires, just use the data and then make measurements. Why would we want to do it? So on the example on the left, you can see Admiral. This was back in November last year. They thought, well, let's use some Facebook data in order to determine someone's car insurance premium. They were specifically looking at 17 to 22-year-olds, so the sort of younger age group. And the way they looked at it was, well, this younger age group, currently car insurance for them costs about £1,300 a year. So pretty expensive. So the problem is, actually, you know, despite what you hear, most young people don't crash their cars. Right? There's a minority that do, but most of them are pretty safe. But you can't distinguish which is which because you've got no history. So there's no way of looking back at the last 20 years of driving and say, well, actually, these people are good and these people are not. But what they do have is a big social media history. So if you look at their Facebook data, maybe you could infer whether they're a good car insurance risk from that data. And then the question is, well, how do you do it? And the way you do it is via psychology. So given the things that you're doing on Facebook, do you look like the kind of person who's going to drive their car fast and be a bit risky and you know, is not going to make a plan in advance? Or do you look like, you know, someone who likes chess and you know, not skydiving and, you know, talking about their homework or whatever? Maybe that kind of person is a better car insurance risk. And Admiral were going to reduce the premiums by about 10% if they thought you were a good risk. So the premium would never go up, but it might go down if they thought you were a good risk. So there's real money behind, if we can make that prediction, then they thought that had value for them. As you can see, Facebook blocked them from doing it, so about 6 hours later, Admiral had to change their minds. But at least it shows that they thought that data was valuable. An example that still is going on is WeBank. So WeBank is mostly it's part of WeChat, which is a huge social networking application in China, got something like 600 million users. And WeBank gives people credit card loans based on their WeChat data. So if you're in WeChat and you're talking to your work colleagues and suddenly you get kicked out of your working group, then WeChat thinks, well, maybe this person has just become unemployed, therefore they're less of a good risk than if they were still chatting away. So you can use this kind of data for financial ends. Okay, so how do we measure people's psychology from the big data? And then, very briefly, a couple of examples in marketing. Okay, and I'm going to talk about 3 ways, but I'll start by giving you a personality test. So I'm a psychometrician, I test people, I thought I'd test you, but it's probably unlike any test you've taken before. So number 1 is just 2 questions, so it's very short. Number 2 is the questions are a bit different. So on the left, you've got Tom Cruise, and on the right, you've got Frank Sinatra. And all you have to do is decide in your head, are you more of a fan of Tom Cruise or more of a fan of Frank Sinatra? So A or B, just sort of think in your head which one. Okay, slightly different question. This is which word cloud do you feel most drawn towards? So on the left, you've got words like home, weekend, shopping, husband, happy, day, things like that. On the right, you've got words like universe, death, music, dream, soul, light, evil, world, etc. So again, just think about which of those word clouds are sort of more like someone like me, or at least which one are you least repelled from if you're repelled from both. Okay, so you should have in your head either AA, AB, BA, or BB. So just think about that, and I'll show you what we were measuring. What we were measuring was the openness personality scale. So on the one hand, it measures people who are more sort of liberal artistic, the kind of person who tries new foods, new places, might go and live in a different culture, different country, things like that. And then, so then on the other side, on the left, you've got more conservative and traditional people. So the kind of person who says, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? So it works, just leave it alone, stop trying to dig into it, just let it be. And you can see if you chose AA, then it's a little bit more on the conservative and traditional side, and BB is more on the liberal and artistic side. Obviously, it's a very short questionnaire. This isn't a real thing. But it's meant to demonstrate the point that the choices that you make or the words that you're using when you're writing on Twitter or on emails or whatever it is can say something about what you are like as an individual. So if you do choose those, world, soul, music, those words are more the words of a liberal and artistic person, whereas talking about the sort of day-to-day things, home, weekend, things like that, are more sort of traditional, more conservative. Okay, here's that shown graphically. So it's got the 5 personality traits you can see here. And the only difference between Tom Cruise and Frank Sinatra, so Tom Cruise in the blue, Frank Sinatra in the purple, is that Frank Sinatra fans are more open-minded than Tom Cruise fans. All right, so what are these 5 traits? Very, very briefly, we've got the openness one, already mentioned that. Conscientiousness, this is about being sort of well-organized, planning for the future, versus a little bit more impulsive, spontaneous, doing things, because you feel like doing them. Extroversion, that's kind of part of the popular language. So, someone who's more socially inclined versus someone who gets more of their energy from being alone. Then you've got agreeableness, which is people who are more trusting of other people, really kind and sort of looking after those that they love. They might get taken advantage of because they're a bit too trusting. Versus, on the other hand, the person who's a bit more competitive, the person who tells you it like they see it. Right? So when the wife says, does this dress make me look fat? Then someone low in agreeableness might say, well, actually it does. And sometimes that's what the wife wants to hear because she's going to go on stage and she's going to present in front of people and she actually wants to look her best. And sometimes she wants a compliment. So there's no ideal personality. It depends on the situation. Final trait here we've got is neuroticism. So this measures people who are more likely to feel stress versus people who are kind of very stable. So you would hope that a stockbroker where there's millions of pounds flying around would be very stable in that situation because it's high stress. Okay, so what did we do? We put an application on the Facebook social network back in 2007, so right back at the beginning, and we let people take a personality test about themselves and then get feedback on their results. So there's, no one gets paid. It's do this questionnaire, find out about themselves, see your feedback, see what you like. And about 6 million people took one of these questionnaires. So we got a big data set about what makes people unique from the questionnaire and what are people doing on Facebook, right? So who are they talking to? What are they liking? What words are they using? Those kinds of things. And then being academics, we published a paper. And the paper was about, can you predict someone's personality test results from just the things that they like on Facebook? Right? So just taking those Facebook likes, can we say someone's extroverted, open-minded, things like that? So we published a paper, and surprisingly for a paper, someone read the paper, so I can get some funnier people than me to tell you what we found. No, I can't because someone's turned off the sound. Someone know how to make this turn back on? There we go.
The University of Cambridge over in London
close enough.
actually did a study
of what people like on Facebook to try to determine facts about them that they wouldn't otherwise know. So they didn't just look at the products, the movies, the bands that people like. They also looked at the status updates that people like, the photos that people like. And they were able to draw some really, really interesting conclusions about
all of your likes that you're clicking can tell more about you than you might have realized, from your political values to your religion to your gender to your happiness to your age.
In fact, some parts of your identity can be predicted with 95% accuracy.
accuracy was lowest, about 60% when it came to predicting whether a user's parents were still together when they're 21. People whose parents divorced before they were 21 tended to like statements about relationships.
men. 88% right there. For women, it was about 75%. Gender, by the way, race, religion, and political views were predicted with high accuracy as well. For instance, white versus black, 95%.
The findings of alarmed privacy campaigners fear this research could be used to commercially exploit users.
So keep in mind that just because you think you're not revealing a lot of personal details on Facebook, you're still spreading the word to the outside world as well as those online marketers.
Volunteers with few friends liked walking with your friend and randomly pushing them into someone or something. Hey, it's not their fault they don't have friends. Everyone they know keeps getting randomly pushed into traffic. High IQ corresponds to liking Mozart, science, and the Colbert Report.
Research indicated people who like Harley-Davidson motorbikes are generally of low IQ.
I'd say our average customer is probably more intelligent than most. We've certainly got a lot of customers who are people from Cambridge University for a start.
By the way, don't be an idiot and think that if somebody clicked on Wicked the Musical that they'd be A automatically, or they clicked on Harley Davidson and it's stupid automatically. Ironically, that would make you stupid.
Okay, so taking these Facebook likes, we predicted a lot of really kind of sensitive things about people. So not just the psychology, but also, you know, sexuality, political views, etc. And these are the kinds of accuracy. So it's area under the curve. So if you've got, let's take Democrat versus Republican. If you've got a Democrat and their likes and a Republican and their likes, the question is how accurately can the machine say which is which? So in this case, it is 85% of the time. So obviously 50% is guessing, 85% is where it's at. These are the same kinds of things for the continuous variables. So you've got the big 5 traits there in the green, age, intelligence, happiness, things like that as well. So a lot of really sensitive things you can tell someone about someone just from this data. Also, in terms of machine learning, the model is pretty simple. So all we do is we're taking the user-like pairs, we're doing a singular value decomposition, and then we're doing linear regression or logistic regression, depending on what the variable is. So this is not like super advanced machine learning. A question?
What's the difference between the pale columns and
Say again, sorry? Oh, yes. So with the green one, so the 0.3 is the correlations we found. The sort of the higher numbers are the potential correlations, given that the test is unreliable itself. So if the test doesn't correlate with itself, then we shouldn't be able to correlate any higher than that. Okay, that was our kind of initial stuff. We did do slightly more complicated machine learning, but not really. We did a lasso regression in 2015, and we got slightly more accuracy from that. And what this shows is we tried to make it a bit more human, right? So it's all very well, we come up with some correlation values, but what do they actually mean in human terms? So what we've done here is we've looked at the ability for someone's friends or family or colleague or whatever it is to predict someone's personality, and then compared that for the ability to Facebook or the algorithm to make the same prediction. So then the question is, are your likes, can you predict someone's personality from their likes better than their mother or better than their co-workers or whatever? So a number of Facebook likes is on the X and accuracy is on the Y. And what you can see for work colleague down at the bottom left there, 0.27, is that number one, work colleagues don't know us very well. So you spend 8 hours a day with these guys, but they don't really know much about you at all. But number two is that's the equivalent of liking 9 things on Facebook. So if you like 9 things on Facebook, then Facebook knows you as well as your work colleague. You can see friend there near the middle. That's the same as about 65 Facebook likes. You can see family is about 125 Facebook likes. And the average person has got 225 of these Facebook likes, which is almost as accurately as someone's husband or wife. So because of, the sort of media conclusion is, well, Facebook knows you as well as your husband or wife. Okay, so now the practical part of the talk. What can you do to look smart on Facebook? So on the left, you've got high IQ, things correlated with low IQ. So science, Lord of the Rings, some sort of nerdy things that made me happy that they're on there. And you guys are far too smart to know what those things on the right are. Same thing for agreeableness. So if you remember, agreeable is kind of trusting versus competitive. So agreeable people like various charitable things and religious things. More competitive people hate everyone, they hate the police, and they hate you as well, just in case you weren't sure. There's that film, The Devil Wears Prada. Turns out that's true. Okay, so and we've got a kind of, we've got a view that people should know what their data says about them. Later on at the end of the day, if you go to this Apply Magic Source website, then you can log in with your Facebook. It takes your Facebook data and makes those predictions about you. So you can see what your Facebook account is saying about you. Okay, so that's method one, that's Facebook likes. We did the same thing with status updates. So these are the words most indicative of being a male or a female. Incredibly stereotypical, I'm afraid. Honestly, I was a bit disappointed that it was so stereotypical. But if you use the word shopping, very indicative of female. And men say a lot of swear words and also spend their time on YouTube and PlayStation and things like that. Same kind of stuff, but in psychology instead. So these are the words correlated with extroversion. So parties and having a blast and things like that. You can see the word cloud at the bottom. These sort of extroverts, they won't say something so cool. It's always like so cool, right? Like it's got to be extended. Same thing for introverts. So introverts are talking about the internet and computers and anime and Pokemon and things like that. Just to be clear, this is data-driven. It's not that we sat down and we said introverts are probably like this. This is what the data is saying. A couple more word clouds. So emotionally stable. They're talking about things that they're doing. Beautiful day, basketball, blessings, things like that, volleyball. And emotionally unstable people are using a lot of swear words. A lot of swear words, but also, depression, sick of, lonely, words like that as well. Okay, so that was method 2. Status updates, there's a question over there at the back. It was based on people did a personality questionnaire, so that was our gold standard. So then we said, given all these words, can we predict whether someone's an extrovert from those words? Okay, so that was method 2. We did the same thing with profile pictures, right? And the interesting thing about a profile picture is it's normally public. Often there's, sometimes there's not even a way to make it private. So we sort of likes are easy to work with, status updates are more challenging, profile pictures are a bit harder. So we looked at what does someone's profile picture say about their intelligence. Basically, we measured their intelligence from an IQ test. And we also got strangers to look at those pictures and say, does this look like the picture of an intelligent person? So we've got measured intelligence and perceived intelligence. And here's my sort of depiction of the perfect profile picture. So Einstein, obviously famously intelligent. Einstein has got both the profile picture that shows that he's measured really intelligence, but also he's perceived as really intelligence. And what correlates with perceived intelligence, so one of them is people that are smiling. So people think other people who are smiling are intelligent. So next time you're in a job interview, look who's smiley and they'll think you're smart. And they also wear glasses, right? So get some glasses if you don't have some, and people will think you look smart. But there's no actual relationship with intelligence. So with measured intelligence, wearing glasses says nothing. With measured intelligence, what correlates is the picture in focus? Is the background really complicated? So if you've got a really complicated background with lots going on, that's correlated with lower intelligence. And how many people in the picture? So if there's 1, that means intelligent. If you've got a group of 10, that means less intelligent. So our sort of post hoc explanation was people who understand the purpose of a profile picture, which is to get yourself across, tend to have more intelligence. Okay, very quick couple of examples of how this can be used to actually change things in the world. So we did some marketing things. We didn't work with Donald Trump. I'll tell you about other people who did, but we did SAP in cosmetics. So this is 2 marketing messages that we came up with for selling the same product, which was a cosmetics product. And we then put those messages out on Facebook, targeted at people of the matching personality or the mismatching personality. So the one on the left is all about extroversion, so it's like dance like no one's watching, so dance like a crazy person, but everyone is watching you, so you're the center of attention. That's great for an extrovert. Whereas the introvert one is she's looking in the mirror, it's a bit more contemplative, it's about her opinion of herself, and that's the introverted version of the same advert. And basically when you put those adverts out, when the advert matches someone's psychology, they're more likely to click on the advert, but they're also more likely to buy stuff after they go through to the website. So introverts seeing the introverted advert, buy more stuff. Extroverts seeing the extroverted advert, buy more stuff. And that's just a first impression. So the website is exactly the same. The only thing that's different is this little advert that you see on Facebook. So just having this first impression that this is for someone like me really makes a big difference. Okay, here's a negative use of this ability, right? So essentially what I'm saying is if you can measure what someone's like, then you can craft a message that is going to be more persuasive because it's aimed at them as an individual, not just a demographic. So this persuasive ability could be used to, let's encourage people to exercise more. Let's encourage people to, eat better food. Let's encourage people to go to the doctor or whatever. And it can also be used to, let's encourage people to vote for a right-wing demagogue, right? And, disappointingly for me and my co-workers, this is probably the first major use of this technology. So the Trump campaign took a load of data on millions and millions, hundreds of millions of people in the US. They say that they predicted their psychology from that data, and they say that they crafted messages aimed at those people that would be more likely to be effective. There's some dispute about how much they actually did this. So it's unclear, how many messages they actually sent out and whether they were effective. But that doesn't mean that it couldn't be effective in the future, right? So whether it was used to elect Trump doesn't mean it couldn't be used to elect someone else in the future. And the sad thing about the Trump is they were aiming at specific things like voter disengagement. So it wasn't let's get people excited about this. It was we predict you're probably demographic, so how Democratic voter, Democrat voter. So what message can we craft to you to make you stay at home, right? Or if you're naturally a fearful person, how can we play on that fear and amplify that to make you feel like all the immigrants are flooding into the US and it's going to be the end of the world unless you vote for Trump. So used in a kind of very negative way. So here's my 4 principles to make customers comfortable with use of data. So number 1 is if you're using a customer's, a person's data, you should be transparent in what you're doing. So they should know what data is being used. Number 2 is they should have control over that. So if it's my data, I should have opted in and I should be able to opt out. Number 3 is it should be relevant, so it should sort of make sense. So just using data doesn't really make sense unless you explain why it sort of makes sense. And then finally, does it benefit them? And that's what companies miss out a lot on. They're thinking, well, how can this data benefit my company or my political campaign, whatever it is, and not actually it's your data that's being used, so it should benefit you as well as the company. So does the customer feel like it's a good use of their data? So one example, with SAP, we talked to a company that was redoing SAP's recruitment. And then you're thinking, well, do we want to use someone's Facebook data to determine whether someone gets a job interview or not? Not really. That would be something that makes people feel really, really uncomfortable. But can we twist this around and make people feel like, actually, this is something that's beneficial to you? And I hope you would agree that we did that. So we basically said, well, SAP is this huge sort of wall of a company, and from the outside it's very hard to know where would I best fit in this massive organization. And actually it's beneficial for me as someone who might want to work in SAP, that I find a good position in that company that means I can excel. And it's good for SAP as well if they fit people into areas that they best fit. So we created this matching app. Again, you share some Facebook data, and then it says, well, this is the area in SAP where we think you'd best fit. And then you can click the button and you can go and do an application if you want. But your data won't determine whether you're successful or unsuccessful in the application. It just helps to drive people to the areas where they're actually more likely to be successful. And I hope that's sort of, I hope you would agree that that's sort of a use of data that is actually beneficial for people and gives them control and makes sense and all those kind of things in a way that many other uses of data wouldn't be. Okay, so to summarize, there's more and better data about people than ever before, now that we're all using these digital devices. You can use it to measure people's psychology, and you can use it to drive people's behavior in various, persuade them to do all sorts of things. And then I think companies need to be very careful that they're doing it in a way that really benefits people. Okay, thanks very much.